So I was really fortunate to be the composer and songwriter for the Pitt, and thank you. And so we were really lucky to get an opportunity to do like the show's first original song, and I was, my dream was to find a collaborator. So I had written a bunch of instrumental tracks, and I wanted to show the instrumental track that I sent to Andrew, and then Andrew had sent me back a voice memo. Unexpectedly, I didn't even know if I was like pitching to him almost, and then he sent me a voice memo. It was challenging because John Wells, the creator of the show, had previously expressed to me that he had a very tumultuous experience working with songwriters and wasn't the biggest fan of commissioning original songs. And if you look at his, filmography, he has been doing this at a legendary level since the early 90s. So there's so many huge artists he's worked with. And as many of us know in this room, it can be a challenging process with labels and all sorts of clearances. And I don't even know any of that stuff. So I understood that it was tough. So what I did is I took Andrew's voice memo and you synced to the picture and kind of edited some of my stems to try to retrofit it. And then what happened is once John heard this, he was so into it. And I was just so lucky that Andrew literally did this on the spec. He did this voice memo. So thankfully, this all kind of worked for this process, because I would never in a million years ask any artist to ever do that. And it sucks that we all probably do that all the time,
Okay, that's an amazing relationship. How did you guys meet?
So I have been the biggest Andrew Bird fan since I was in college. I was really lucky. I took this class. It was like a graduate class where the graduate students could choose a topic, and the topic was like composers who went into songwriting and pop music, and we Dan Deacon and Andrew Bird and Arca and all these like very cool producers of electronic music and then also folk stuff. So I'd been listening to him, and legitimately when I worked on the instrumental, I started thinking who would be the most dream collaborator for that style, and I really did have Andrew Bird as number one. And I was so lucky that my agent he just signed Andrew, so I begged him to forward my stuff to him. And he's like, no guarantees he'll even respond. And then like a few days later, it was literally he just attached his iPhone voice memo, and he's like, what do you think of this? It was like such a such a simple, like quick thing. And it was like so shocking. And I dropped everything and listened. But truly like one of those things where you like blindly pitch. And thankfully I did have that connection, but I was already like looking for alternate options, but was very lucky to get surprised by that,
Yeah, I mean, you're lucky. I just literally shoot the DMs. So,
well,
yeah.
I mean, yeah. I don't know if, truthfully, I don't even think Andrew has any, he's not running his social media.
Okay,
so
yeah.
He's very off the grid in that way, but that is a good way. I don't know if I've really explored that. Maybe on the next song,
Yeah. I mean, maybe only one responds out of like 50, but
that's totally the game,
Yeah, exactly. But it could be a big one.
I mean, that literally. I'll let you know how that goes next time.
Okay. So you also do the entire score for this show, which is so rare to do the score and songs.
Well, it's funny because I feel like that's the only real reason I even got to do the song was because I was in the spotting session. And like it's kind of funny because like the Pitt's score truly is extremely minimal. And the whole thing was like when they kind of did a call for composers, they were looking for people who were really into found sound. Like it's funny because Ian and I have bonded over similar things we love. Like even with what Ian did in Drops of God is so aligned with stuff that I love, is like using found sound recordings, using anything to like get yourself outside of the traditional. So there was a movie I did with Neon called How to Blow Up a Pipeline, and the post supervisor loves like experimental indie movies, and she had seen this movie, thankfully, and she really, and the score is like bombastic, and I went to New Mexico and recorded. I brought my metal drummer friend, and he like banged on actual pipelines, and like we recorded electrical currents with like contact microphones, and we did all this crazy stuff. And she was so into that. So the idea for the score was like, what does it sound like if the hospital makes the score? Like, what if it's like the EKG machines and like these like machines that are like pulsing, so it almost like doesn't sound like there's any score. But if we muted like what I was doing, it would start to feel empty, and it's a very tight-knit collaboration with Brian Parker, who's the sound designer, who's like a literal genius and the most underrated person on the Pit. Like the amount of the times like all those like heartbeat sounds, like all those things are done by hand. There's no like plug-in for that. It's so complex, and so I'll like match his beeping sounds with like a sample or something. So we're like very tightly working, but it's inconspicuous. So this was like the first time that the showrunners were giving any opportunity to have like an overtly musical moment, even though it's very spare at the end of a scene. It's the only time, any time in the season that they've done that. Usually, even with any song that they've licensed, they'll like wait even like 10 seconds after the end credits. They love like silence in the show, which I respect very much, which is kind of what gives it its like sonic identity,
Do you find it challenging sometimes as a composer to get the chance to write an original song?
No, I'm like dying to do that. It's like the best. Like I mean, like many people in here, I aspire to. I think the collabs through many years of composers who work with songwriters is always really fascinating. And I had like worked on this movie that just came out, like the Faces of Death remake, which couldn't be more different. Also, if anything with blood in it, I seem to be getting called for, which is, but that I actually also similarly like begged them to allow me to collaborate with songwriters too, because it's like I come from a band background and like played jazz. My original major was like jazz guitar.
Were you in a band?
I was in a band, but not anything successful. And it was very, it was a pretty like high school band. And then like sadly, I injured my wrist really bad from like I was in jazz. I was in like the jazz.
What did you play?
What?
What did you play?
Guitar. And I was like so obsessed with jazz stuff, and I was playing absurdly. I was playing like 10 hours a day, and injured my wrist, and then had to give up performance, and then switch to composing and blessing, but. It was kind of like an alternative path, but I definitely came from that songwriting world, left it, studied classical, and then now I've kind of like returned to it only in recent years, but full circle,
Yeah, I find a lot of what you do to get where you are kind of prepares you for that. None of it's in vain. It's all makes sense at some point.
Yeah, we're lucky. If it's you just don't know where you're ever going, but. I think we're unfortunately getting the wrap-up signal.
Okay, 2 quick questions. Why do you think they chose episode 6?
I didn't choose. I think it was truly just, it's the arc of Louis' character. For anybody who watches the show, like, we've been following Louis' journey, and this was just a moment that was so natural in the character's progression. So I think it was just about the character's arc just happened to happen in this episode. So it's interesting. It's like a mid-season like heartbreak moment, but there's something about Andrew's like lyrics and the melody that it's like heartbreaking but also somehow hopeful. I don't know, maybe I just find it like that, but
it is.
But like Louis' like storyline was like it's a lot about like you just don't know a person, like you make so many assumptions about a character, or like it's easy to pass judgment on people. And I think Dr. Robbie's speech is a lot about like finding empathy for these characters, and like empathy is like the core of theme of the Pit, and it's like the most important thing that we all should just be like, we all in this room have it, but like we all know a lot of other people don't, and I think that's just a big message that Andrew grabbed onto for the lyrics of the song, and it's something that we learned from Louis' character,
And last question, what makes Need Someone different from the rest of the music in the Pit?
I definitely just think it's the overt musicality of it. Like a guitar is not any. This isn't like Grey's Anatomy or like we all love those shows. Like I love the period hospital pieces that we've all come to love. But this was really like they wanted to steer away from that, and then this was like one time where they're like, let's like hear like a guitar, and then like there's like a more overt synth like tape loop I made, and so it's just kind of the idea of like not being afraid to just be like, here's music now, versus like my score, which I was saying earlier, is like trying to be like subconscious tension. Like I didn't really even want anybody to even know the music was happening. They're just like feeling stressed because obviously what's happening on the screen, but then also there's like crazy like synth pulses and like Shepard Tony like EKG machines, and it's like, so this was just, that's kind of a rant, but yeah.
Thank you so much, Gavin, for breaking this
Thank you so
down
much.
for
Thank
us.
you for doing
You're
this.
amazing.
Thank you, everybody.